All right, BCA-101. This was Wednesday, day 16, 10, 5, 16, if I have that right. Okay. We are working on spreadsheets. We reviewed some main topics and we talked about assignment 3. This work gives the instructions, it gives a couple options for sheets, and it also gives a solution that the students can look at to see if they're doing it correctly. Alright, we talked about antivirus a little bit in terms of software. This would be software that would fit under the category of system. Excuse me. System software. Now, this I played from Reply All. The podcast from Gimlet. And they gave an example of a young gal who was in New York, got out of a cab, left her camera, she panicked. Not only did it was an expensive camera, but it had all the pictures from their trip in New York. She's actually from the West Coast. So she went online, clicked the first thing that came up. You know, she typed in lost articles, taxi New York, and she got this yellowcabnewyork.com, and she clicked that, and it had a form. She filled in the form, clicked 47 and some odd change, and she thought, man, that is really expensive, so she clicked it. And it came back and said, we don't actually find your product, we just increase the odds of finding it. And you wonder, how did that end up so high on the search? Well, it wasn't a regular search item, it was an ad. It was an ad, a Google ad. And Google tries to stop companies from doing this. They have like 1,000 people taking down 300 and some thousand ads a year, but they can't catch them all. And there's nothing illegal about it. It just says, you know, we put it in a list so taxi cab drivers can check the list and et cetera, but in all reality, she got took for $47. The company now, since the Reply All, they contacted the owner, and since all this, their price has come down to 19 something. I'm not sure if this is the exact website, but it's still up. I checked a couple days ago. We talked about hardware. We did quite a bit of work talking about processor on the motherboard, RAM, memory, storage, some type of storage, and those things all connected by electronic bus so that they all can communicate. And we talked about slots being in the computer and ports, and we talked about input and output and so forth. All these items that deal with hardware. What communicates with the hardware is system software. System software like the operating system and utilities. They communicate with the hardware. So the operating system like Windows 10, Mac OS 10, Unix, Linux is a lot like Unix. Those operating systems communicate with the hardware. And then The application communicates with the operating system. One reason why an application designed to work with Windows would have to be designed differently to work with Linux. It wouldn't be compatible with both. And then we also have this whole array of utilities: virus software, task manager, file management, managing users on the computer, passwords and so forth, installing and removing software. So we have utilities that allow us to work with the device, with the computer. Alright, and then we have these applications, like a browser is an application, all the productivity software, spreadsheets, database, word processing, etc., presentation stuff. You have custom software designed for a particular purpose. For example, Web Advisor, that would be a vertical software for colleges to keep track of all the information that needs to be tracked of in a college. Gaming, that would be an application. Games are designed. If you're a gamer, you almost have to have Windows software because most games are designed to run on Windows. Not so much Linux. Alright. So, some other key things: system software, operating systems. We talked about the details. I'm not going to go into all of them here. But what function does it serve? What kind of features does it have? What categories does it fit in? Like an operating system for a PC, or an operating system for a you might actually call that in different categories: a PC, a phone, in your car, and so forth. Different types of operating systems. What functions does it perform? User interface, and a lot of times it's also the user experience. It takes care of file management. It takes care of managing multitasking inside the computer, and all those things that make a computer function. It manages the resources in a computer. Features, some of them have, especially in phones, you might see a different feature in one operating system than another in terms of how it takes pictures and how it might manage exterior sound when you're on the device and so forth. A lot of user interface features might vary. Alright, now I already talked about categories. Utilities, file management, task management. We're going to take a look at those here as we go along. Might update users, manage updates, remove or install software. These are all system type things with the computer that makes it easier to manage the computer and makes it easier for apps to run on the computer. So here's the big picture. We talked about smartphones and the different operating systems for those: Android, iOS, BlackBerry. Apple still has a smartphone. Device drivers now, I didn't mention that on the other page. They're a type of system software that allows different vendors to have their devices work and communicate with an operating system. So you might get a hard drive from one vendor, and a device driver is a piece of software that allows that piece of hardware to talk to the system. Okay? You might get some other piece of hardware, a specific type of webcam, and plug that in. There would be a device driver for that webcam to allow it to communicate to the system. These are really important. Okay, a lot of people don't think much about them. They are software. They are software designed to create an interface between some type of hardware talking with another type of hardware, usually through the motherboard. That's it for this.